These are difficult days for the 7 million Muslim Americans. In the wake of last Tuesday's horror, there have been taunts, threats, and what can only be called outright hate crimes. Here's Nightline correspondent John Donvan.
Allahu Akbar.
They buried Waqar Hassan this afternoon. He was shot Saturday near Dallas, working alone at one of those late-night grocery operations. The police aren't sure who shot him or why. The killers took no money. But his family thinks they know the reason. They believe Waqar Hassan was murdered for being Muslim. At which point, a reasonable person has to ask, haven't too many people died already? Do those Americans around the country who are picking on, spitting on, or even shooting at Muslim Americans, or anyone they think looks like a Muslim American, do they realize that possibly hundreds of Muslims died last week in New York City? So many faces with traditionally Muslim names. Whom did Salman Hamdani hurt last week? Or Taimur Khan? Like so many of the other victims, they're still missing. Their families can't hold funerals. In this awful way, they're just like everyone else. Yet the way Muslims experienced last week and this is not like everyone else. A school in Springfield, Virginia this afternoon. Mrs. Shim has the 9- and 10-year-olds. Here was today's writing assignment.
Write your 2 sentences. Remember, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Something that happened to you that relates to the World Trade Center.
I watched what happened. I was scared because the World Trade Center was blown up and my dad was 5 miles away from the World Trade Center.
They think Muslims are terrorists because they're blaming them to do it, but Muslims aren't terrorists.
I don't like what's going on these days. There's a lot of people that got hurt and killed. I'm worried about going to school. And the mosques, I'm afraid they're going to bomb it up.
Oh Allah,
Oh Allah,
protect our country.
Yesterday, a letter was received by the school. It was ugly, and it was anonymous. It said in part, don't phone or threaten a mosque, blow it up. Shoot a Muslim, not call out insults. These are cowards who hide in shadows. The principal invited us into the school's prayer room to talk.
I get the feeling you're not all that surprised to get a letter like this.
Not exactly, because as I said, sometimes, some mosques receive this kind of threats, and some mosques were vandalized by some groups.
The school closed last Tuesday and stayed closed because parents were afraid of nuts attacking their kids. It's reopened with extra security guards and an American flag at half-staff out front. California today, a Muslim school in Sonoma, where attendance is down 40% since New York and Washington were attacked.
Many of the parents, they did not send their kids to the schools. Women who have Islamic attire, they are fearful when they leave their homes, and I think I'm really sad because of that.
Just walking down the street, you think, oh God, someone could come behind me and attack us, and you really don't want to feel that right now.
And Georgetown University. Actually, it feels like a safe haven to Muslims here. They say that their fellow Christian, Jewish, and other students have been unwaveringly open and warm and compassionate. Gatherings like this one this morning have been frequent.
This moment of silence is to remember the victims of the Pentagon.
And yet, none of the students we talked with feels entirely safe stepping off campus. They talked about the advice they've been getting from home, about lying low right now, the steps they should take to stay out of trouble.
Your dad told you to shave your beard?
To shave my beard, to put an American flag on my car, anything that would make me not necessarily be targeted.
How did you feel about getting advice like that from your dad to shave your beard?
I understand where he came from as far as a concern, but similar to our Muslim sisters wearing scarves, I feel it's an attack on my liberty as an American. I have this right to have a beard, and I think I shouldn't have to sacrifice that right.
But it goes beyond just staying safe. Some of these students end up questioning what chance they really have now ever to feel included as full-fledged Americans, to get good jobs, to get promoted.
A lot of Muslim students feel like they're doomed professionally. I mean, because I wear a scarf, I'm immediately identified as Muslim. Therefore, I think people are going to look at me with suspicion, maybe.
What are your professional aspirations?
My professional aspiration has always been to be in the media.
And do you think that this whole thing has really doomed your chances now?
Definitely.
What would be another word?
The sad thing is seeing how early those feelings can take root. Back in that Springfield, Virginia schoolroom, we kept hearing how little kids have been treated by other kids this week.
Have you been hearing people saying bad things about Muslims since this happened?
Yeah.
What kinds of things have you been hearing?
Really bad things.
Like what?
They keep on saying you did it. To me. You're people who did it.
What do you say when they say that to you?
I ignore them and go.
No, like when I'm like playing with my friends, these Christians, they keep on staring at me, like in a bad way.
Does all of this experience, do you think, make it more difficult for the kids to feel truly that they are American and that they are part of the society and this culture, when the culture has them scared and has their parents scared?
Yes, in fact, that's true. That's why it's very important that the media, whoever interested in this, to send positive messages to the kids, to include them into the mainstream rather than to exclude them.
The kids had a lot more to say. Some are convinced that Osama bin Laden could not have launched last week's attack because he is a Muslim. Or if he did launch the attack, then he cannot be a Muslim. They all made the point that Islam stands for peace. None made it quite as well as this little girl who misses peace.
I want this world to change back into normal place.
What would that be like if it changed
Peaceful, and we could play together and have fun and laugh together.
You say you would like things to go back to normal?
Yeah.
Do you feel they're not normal now?
Yeah.
How do they feel now to you?
Really bad.
Well, there's not really very much you can add to that, except this. Every Muslim we spoke with also told us that many fellow Americans, in fact, the overwhelming majority, had been exceedingly kind to them this week. The bad incidents are an exception. They all wanted us to be clear about that. But the impact these incidents have had is deep and powerful. Our enemies are already using them to argue that America is hostile to Muslims. And maybe some Muslim children, though American since birth, are beginning to wonder whether that isn't true. I'm John Donvan for Nightline in Washington.
And I'll be back in a moment. Tonight at New York's Union Square, they gathered once again to pay their respects, to light candles and to try and make some sense out of the events 1 week ago. And that's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
The ABC television network extends its thoughts and prayers to those who've suffered so much in this national tragedy. We stand steadfast with all Americans, united in hope and courage.